that have video on. And yeah, no, I really like speaking at these virtual meetups more than I have enjoyed virtual WordCamps. Like I have done a couple of them, but what I like about these virtual meetups is like I can make a little bit of fake eye contact with some of you. Like I can see you, we're all like Brady bunching it on the screen together. So I'm really glad that there's so many of you here to hang out and learn some stuff. I like to be as interactive as possible, especially because this is an Ask Me Anything. So I'm sure I'll ask all y'all some questions as well. There are a bunch of questions already in the chat. Claire shared the ones that were posted on Meetup. So I've already looked at all of them, kind of got a sense of what people want, but I would love to know kind of how many of you would consider yourselves like a developer. So if you consider yourself a developer, newbie or experienced or whatever, if that's your thing or that's what you want to do, just like type the word developer in the chat real quick. Just like do it. I'm gonna make you all type stuff, so you gotta be ready for it. Yeah, dev is even better. Yeah, so sweet. I just love to get some of that. Awesome. Awesome. Front of the front end is the fun part of front end, in my opinion. So that's I just wrote a whole bunch of super fun CSS today. I could do that all day long. Sweet. How many of you would consider yourselves a designer? So I'm gonna try to get everything in there. So if you're a designer, yep. I just like to, this is what I usually do at the beginning of talks. It goes a little bit faster because everyone can raise their hand, but like I know not everybody can or wants to be on video, so that's cool. How many of you would consider yourselves like content or marketing or SEO? Like you do web-based services, but none of them are like specifically building stuff. It's more like kind of services and service of the web. Anybody? Content, web, like SEO, marketing, anything like that? And then how many of you just type like implementer or builder if you like build sites but you don't write code, you and either because you own the site for your business or you're doing it as a hobby or you inherited something that you need to learn how to use. Yeah, sweet. Implement and build, write as little code as possible. Nice. Yeah, so this is really cool. I like to get to know my audience because I know that inevitably I am going to be speaking to like a whole lot of different skill levels, and hopefully all of you will learn something. One little thing that I learned this on Twitter, I think the other week, and I think this is really fun and I'd like to share this one. Somebody said that there isn't really such a thing as advanced like development topics and beginner developer topics. Like there really isn't such a thing as those things. What there is there's like mainstream or common developer topics and there's niche developer topics. And some really common mainstream developer topics that you kind of have to know are actually really hard. And some like super niche ones that like almost no one's ever going to interact with are super easy. So it like advanced or not advanced isn't really the right thing. It's more like what are really common and what are really niche. So I like to bring that up at the beginning of meetups nowadays, just so that everyone like that's more how I like to talk about it. Like what are some things you have to know that are common? Maybe some of them are hard, maybe some of them are easy. And then what are some things you have to know that are maybe a little more obscure? Maybe some of those are hard, maybe some are easy. Awesome. It's really nice to meet all of you. Those of you that I can see or not, but I love all the participation in the chat. So I'm gonna like kind of dive in. It's gonna be hands-on. So I'm gonna show you some stuff. I'm gonna talk through some stuff. And I'm gonna try to answer the questions that were asked. And if you have new questions, put them in the chat. I am kind of scrolled up to the top of the chat right now so I can see the other questions. So I might not see your new ones right away, but Claire will keep me honest. So this should be good. All right, I'm gonna share my screen as one does in this day and age. All right. Can y'all see the beautiful screen? Yes. Cool. All right. I'm going to make sure that my chat window's up too. So hold on one second. Got a lot of different windows I need to look at. Okay, cool. So just also so you all know, my screen with all my stuff on it's over here and you all are over here. So if I like look this way, that's why I'm looking at my random screen. So, but I have the big giant view of all of you on this screen so I can see both. So that's nice. And I got the chat window. So we should be good. All right. So huge variety of people in here in terms of their experience with Gutenberg. We have some people that don't necessarily even know where to get started. We have some people that seem like they've probably, done a few things with it. And then there's some more like very specific questions in terms of either implementing with it or building with it. So I'm going to try to start at the beginning, go over a little bit of some of my philosophy and how I approach things, and then get into more specific stuff. And again, feel free to add some more questions, and Claire will bug me if I don't answer them fast enough. So what you're looking at right here is my my own base theme with Gutenberg blocks in it. Some of them are, and again, I'll start with the semantic introduction. Gutenberg is the name of the plugin where new features are tested, which powers the WordPress Block Editor, which is technically what it's called. So Gutenberg is how it started. It was a plugin. It was experimental stuff. Gutenberg is still a plugin. You can still install Gutenberg on your site. And what you do when you do that is you're getting basically the most up-to-date like test features that you're trying out. It's kind of fun. I wouldn't recommend doing it on a production site, but it is kind of fun on your own site to be able to see what's coming next, how they're changing the UI, test some things out, see what's buggy, help them out. But we will probably just use Gutenberg and the block editor interchangeably here because we all know, what that is. We're all nerds together. But if you are talking to a client or someone external facing, probably the block editor is technically the more correct term. So just FYI. But anyway, this is my my base theme. So I have a theme that I've been writing for many years that I use for most of my projects, and it has a lot of opinions and stuff that I'll get into later, but it is fully Gutenberg compatible. One of the questions that I saw was basically like, how do you even know how to like start with Gutenberg and how do you pick themes? Currently, the block editor is technically like non-breakable compatible with most themes. In that it operates inside just the content box right now. So the blocks are just the part that used to be the content, and everything else is still a normal theme. So most things will probably not break. That being said, there are a lot of different ways that themes can explicitly support the block editor and enhance the block editor and take advantage of the block editor. So if you want the best experience, you probably want a theme that is explicitly saying they support Gutenberg, they support the block editor. That'll probably be your best bet. Again, the one I'm showing is one that I happen to build. There's several themes that do it. Obviously, all of the core WordPress themes do it. So the ones that have a year as the name of their theme. There are a few other ones that I can share links to if you want some that have some more customizer options or things to build with. The point is, block editor or Gutenberg ready theme is probably better, although the other ones probably technically won't break. You can see in this design here that it looks like a theme, right? There's a header and there's some stuff and there's components, and they're very attractive and definitely not a bunch of random content that I threw in here to test it. But all of these things between the header and the footer are blocks. Spoiler alert, they're working on building full site editing. So pretty soon, even the header and the footer are going to be blocks, and that's going to be a thing. But that's just like giving you a little taste of the future, right? But you can see here, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's several different, all these things here are also blocks, right? So this is what's known as the block unit test, which is a plugin that you can download that'll just create some pages that have just all the different core WordPress blocks in them, so you can put them in your theme and test them to see how they look. But you can see there's lots of different types of blocks, right? Lots of typographic blocks, stuff you're used to, paragraphs and headings, buttons, drop menus, archives, etc. But now you can also see there's some interesting stuff too, like columns, pull quotes, right? And then images, galleries, all sorts of stuff. We don't need to stare at a list of everything. But the point is, there's a ton of stuff built into WordPress right now. On top of that, there are lots and lots of custom blocks out there, right? So if you use a common plugin like maybe Woocommerce or Gravity Forms or another form plugin or a calendar plugin, or even just something like Atomic Block or something, there's a bunch of plugins that add even more blocks on top of the core editor. So this is a bunch of custom blocks that I built. So these are, tabs. This is a slider. A bunch. These are all custom blocks that I've built. So not only do you have the blocks that come with WordPress, or come in the Gutenberg plugin, but other plugins, other things can add more blocks. So pretty much where you used to have to get a theme that had a bunch of stuff built into it, and then get plugins and maybe add short codes or widgets. Now you also have blocks. So what does this actually look like? Let's go into the dashboard and look at some pages. So pretty much any custom post type could support blocks. By default, pages and posts in WordPress support blocks. Any other custom post type, it's kind of up to the author of the post type or the plugin whether or not it supports blocks. But let's make a new page so I can show you what happens when you get on here. All right, so intro to the block editor now. First of all, you can see this is a little bit different. Probably most people, when they create a new page, aren't going to have a big giant pink square in the middle of their site. This is something that I, as a theme developer, have created called a block template. And a block template is something that theme developers can make that pre-populates different types of posts with different blocks. So for example, on my page, I want all my on my website, I want all my pages to probably have a cover image. So I just, like, as a theme author, wrote it so that the cover image automatically shows up. That's something that I can do as a theme author. But let's get rid of that so that we can kind of see. Here we are. This is the block editor. Slightly styled a little bit. One of the other things, as a theme author, it's my responsibility to make sure that the stuff that you see inside the editor looks like the stuff that you see on the front end. The core block editor experience does have some built-in styles, so it won't break. But if your theme has not officially supported editor styles, then it won't look anything in Gutenberg on the back end that it does on the front end. And I know some people have complained about that, like, well, this doesn't look anything. Yeah, that is the theme author's responsibility. So again, another reason why you probably want to use a theme that explicitly supports the block editor, because then your back end will probably match your front end. But anyway, here's what you see when you first. I'm going to resize this a little bit so it's more, yeah. All right, so here's what you see when you first go into block editor. Slightly styled a little bit differently, again, because I've made some decisions, but you have your sidebar on the side, and you have the side menu. Actually, by default right now, you don't have the side menu. You will probably see it looking like this when you first open your first Gutenberg page. They decided, for whatever reason, that full screen mode was going to be the default, and if you don't want it to be the default, you have to turn that off. These little 3 dots in the upper right corner and this little settings thing here are going to be your friend. You're probably going to have to go into those a whole bunch. But the little 3 dots in the upper right corner, one of the things that you can do is turn off full screen mode. I personally do that because I like to have access to all this stuff, and I use the menu all the time. That's just my personal workflow, but now you know where it is. You can also see, if you're used to the classic editor, in the sidebar here, you still have all your boxes you're used to. So, your publishing stuff. The permalink has actually moved into the sidebar now. It used to be up under the title. It's now in the sidebar. Your featured image, any other things that usually would be in the sidebar, that is here under your kind of your primary thing here. So if it was a post, it would say post. If it was something else, it would say something else. But this is your primary, like, global settings for this page, right? Stuff we're used to seeing. Page attributes, you could pick a page template, etc. Right? So I still have page templates. I could pick one. Cool. But then we have this new thing, and it's called block. And right now, we are inside a paragraph block, because I've pre-populated it with a paragraph block. And so you can see that the paragraph block has its own settings, right? Every block probably has its own settings. A lot of them show up in the sidebar. The core blocks all have them in the sidebar. Other types of blocks, depending on how they built, might put their settings in the sidebar. They might put their settings in context with the block. You can see a couple different menus here. So paragraphs have some settings. They have different color settings. You can add, drop caps, whatever. And then you can also see there's some inline settings for formatting, right? So if I want to type some stuff here and then, make some of it bold, add a link, all of that is right there. That can get a little bit annoying, especially if you have a whole lot of paragraphs on a page or whatever. So over here in the little 3 dot menu again, there's this thing called top toolbar. If you click on that, it moves your editing stuff into the top toolbar for every single thing. That can be cool, right? It might not for other reasons that I can show you. So I'm going to go to a page that has a lot more blocks on it, just so that you can see where we're at. And then after I give you this overview, I'll step back and talk a little bit more about philosophy, because I know there were a lot of questions about like, how do I even plan this and why, right? So I'm going to go to, let's see here. Let's go here. This one's good. I got a lot of test data on here. This is a local site, so I can kind of do whatever I want, but all right. So now we have a page with a whole lot more stuff on it. You can see there's a block called a cover block. The cover block is one of the ones. So again, you can see my little settings up here. I can add a image in the background. So, you know, change how it's focused. So this is a pretty common pattern here, right? The cover with the text in it. Inside the cover, there's this thing called inner blocks. So some of these blocks can put blocks inside blocks, which is really useful because then you can actually build useful layouts. There's this button block that lets me add multiple buttons. Then you can see if I have a button selected, I've got a whole lot more options about what kind of button. Is it filled in? Is it an outline? If it is filled in, you know, what kind of colors do I want to have here? Do I want to give it a border radius? Lots and lots of options. My options here might look different from some of the options you see. Theme authors do have control over what these colors are if they want to. They have options whether to turn on and off some of these to make them available. So some theme authors might turn off some of the options if they don't really match what, you know, the brand is doing. They might limit, I limited the colors to a specific set of colors. Or they might be like free reign, color picker, do whatever you want, right? So there's lots of, you might see some slightly different things here, but that's been generally how it is. But anyway, you can see that there's like a whole lot of different blocks on this page. You can also, once a block is on a page, you could add another block in between it. So let's say I wanted to put another paragraph, you know, above this, can do that. Let's say I decided I actually didn't want that there. I wanted it below this heading. These arrow keys here, which, you know, I'll move this back out of the top toolbar so you can see what it looks like when it's not in the top toolbar. You know, it follows you around, maybe kind of nice because you can move it. But these arrow keys let you move blocks up and down. But another thing you can do is you can drag a block, which you can't do if it's up in the top toolbar. So that's one of the things. So you can drag the blocks around. It's a little bit finicky. It's still not perfect, but that's some stuff you can do. So this is kind of the how of how adding blocks work. So like I showed you, there's this add block thing, which lets you be able to look at your most recent blocks. You can click Browse All to open a menu. If you know what you're looking for, like I definitely want Woo, you know, you can start searching for a block there. I do that a lot. If you hit Browse All, it opens up this side menu, which is also toggled by this plus sign. And this is every single freaking block that exists on your site. You can scroll through all of them. A lot of the core blocks have these little previews, so you can kind of see what the heck that is, what might it look like. But there's just like a ton of blocks, right? There's just so many, and these are the blocks that I have installed that I can use. So I understand that philosophically, this looks pretty overwhelming, right? So there were some questions before we get too far down into the how things work. There were some questions about basically building stuff and designing for Gutenberg themes, right? So how do I, as a designer, design for a Gutenberg ready theme? And then how, as a person who's building pages, how would I even figure out how to build a page using the theme? So similar questions. So if you've ever heard me give a talk before, you could, if you haven't, you can look this up, but I speak a lot about the principles of atomic design. I don't want to go into too much detail now because that is literally an entire presentation in and of itself. But atomic design is basically a way of breaking down a design into reusable components. Reusable components that remind me an awful lot of Gutenberg components. If you want to try to search for that, I could try to probably share a link to the last time I gave that talk. But that goes into more detail about philosophically how you can take a look at maybe a design or an idea you have and break it down into which block makes the most sense for that thing. But the point is, what Gutenberg blocks are doing is instead of you having to think about like the design of every single page as a page, like its own thing, you're breaking it down into the smallest components. So, okay, this is a heading and I reuse that multiple ways. This is a cover image, I reuse that multiple ways. This is, you know, a lockup of a photo and some text, I use that multiple ways, right? So it's basically a way of breaking that down into smaller objects. That's one of the, you know, objects is inside the thing that that you can reuse in multiple places. So that's the philosophy behind it. Designing for that, I am basically creating my designs now if I'm doing mockups, like if I'm actually doing a custom design for a client. I am not necessarily doing pages anymore. I am actually creating mockups of different core Gutenberg components and different custom components. So what I'll probably do is I'll be like, here's what my header is going to look like. Here's what my footer is going to look like. And then here's like how I'm going to style, you know, the different typographies. Here's how I'll style the cover block. Here's what columns will look like. Here's what a lot of these core blocks are going to look like, right? And then if there are any custom blocks that I'm going to be either getting or building, I will lay those out as well. So I might do a couple of page designs. You know, if I'm doing an e-commerce site, it might be nice to know what the product page looks like. I'm probably going to lay out a home page to map out how those blocks are going to work, but all of it is still block driven. And that's how I'm doing the design for that. So like, again, that's like a philosophy step back thing. I'm going to like check out the chat, make sure, okay, good. Sweet. Oh, thanks for sharing the unit test link. Thank you. Cool. So I'm going to look at my questions again to make sure that I am going in the right direction. Cool. So yeah, so basically the way that the block editor factors into how I design things, again, it's a combination of coming up with an idea and matching it to blocks and then coming up to blocks and figuring out how they match my design, right? So I have a philosophy for that. It fits with atomic design, where I believe that if I am, as a theme designer, styling for global elements very, very well, then there are always good fallback rules for any block that I'm adding, right? So if I'm styling for all headings and a block is built well and it's not overly opinionated, it will take my heading rules. It will take my rules. If there are specific blocks that I want to support like explicitly, such as I'm building an e-commerce site, so I should probably support all of the blocks from the e-commerce plugin. I'm building an event site, so I should probably support all the blocks from that calendar plugin. Then I will build in styles for those into my theme as well. It's my responsibility as a theme designer to make sure that everything feels like it makes sense together. It's my responsibility to try to make sure that whatever we add in the future, because it's a content management system, we don't have control over the content. That's the whole fun of it. It's my responsibility to make sure that everything that gets added in the future is still going to make sense. And if it's well written, like if it's written well, it won't break anything. It won't stylistically break anything. It won't programmatically break anything, right? So there's a lot of responsibility for theme designers nowadays in the age of blocks when we can't control everything. But it's actually very exciting and lots of problem solving. All right, so again, in the same thing, how early in the planning process do I start thinking about blocks to use? Pretty early. Again, a lot of common layout stuff. So the core WordPress has columns, which let you put things into columns. So here's a column block. This is one that I love. So navigating your Gutenberg blocks, I was about to show you some column block stuff, and I went to this little outline view. It looks like a hamburger menu that's falling over in the top menu there. This basically shows you like the nesting of what blocks you have and how they relate to each other, which is really useful because if I'm clicking on a column and I want to try to click on like the container block, like sometimes it's really hard to actually like click on it. So if I can click on something, I can get to that thing. Like, okay, here's my columns block. Columns, you can have, 2 columns, you can have 4 columns, right? So that's super easy, right? You used to have to do a lot of really complicated stuff to be able to add columns, and now that just exists as a block, which is very, very nice. And then inside columns, you can add other blocks. So I could have, an image here. Let's do that because that's going to look so good. All right, let's put this super cool image, right? Now I have a column and it has an image in it. The image itself has its own things, right? I can change the size of it. Yeah, I could, if it had a background, I could make it rounded versus not rounded. Like everything has a lot of little settings. So even if you are not a developer, you can tweak a bunch of things. Now that brings up the question, which has also been asked, kind of Gutenberg versus Page Builder, who will win, right? I believe that both of them have a different place and purpose in site building. We'll see how full site editing goes and whether or not full site editing takes on some of the responsibility of page builders. But I believe that page builders are really for people who have a lot of opinions but don't want to write code. What I mean by that is page builders give you very, very granular control over lots and lots of tiny settings, right? So you're setting your margins, your padding, your spacing, your borders, your typography, your colors on like a piece by piece basis, right? It's almost like, kind of reminds me of like component-based JavaScript, right? Where it's like everything is like so compartmentalized to the one thing. I can have my settings here be different than my settings here. And then there's usually like a customizer settings thing that's even like more global than that, right? So page builders are great for people that want to have a lot of those opinions but don't want to write code. It's different than Gutenberg. Gutenberg, the block editor, has some settings, right? Like obviously I can change my image sizes. I can, change my text color, right? I can change the background color. I can, change the link color. That's new. I'm really excited about that one. I could do that, but I can't and I can change the font size too. This is also something that as a theme author, I have control over what these sizes are and the names of them. But I can't, change all of the padding and all of the typefaces and all of the everything here, right? Like that's not what that's not what the block editor is trying to do. What the block editor is trying to do is let you take styles that have already been kind of built and crafted for you and build like a very elegant page out of it. And feel confident that everything relates to each other. That's what the block editor is trying to do. You can still make some very attractive choices. I actually really like, if I do this, you get this little alert that says, people probably can't read that, maybe don't. I really like that. So then that goes away if there's actually high enough contrast. Kind of nice. But anyway, I can get rid of, I can also like columns are sweet too, because if you go back to my navigator here, I can actually like change the width of a single column. And I probably don't need 4 columns here. This seems silly. I'm going to do 3 columns. There we go. Great. Perfect layout. But that was super easy with the block editor. I would have had to do a lot of complex things in a page builder or have to have a custom page layout that does all that before the block editor. Speaking of some of that stuff, so we started talking about customizing styles and colors and all of that. I have some questions about where to set styles. So this is more of like if I am a theme developer question, how I would set that up. So I have personally decided to move some things into the customizer from my theme, primarily the colors and a little bit of some of the global settings, like whether it's generally dark or light. Mostly because I'm using this to be able to spin up some sites fairly quickly for people. And so I wanted to move some of that out. By the way, all of the stuff that I'm showing you now, I have up on my GitHub, and I will share that link at the end so that y'all can play with it if you want to. It's free, it's fun, it's exciting. But this is not specific to the block editor, but I have a customizer settings plugin that I've added, which so all those colors that you saw in the editor to pick your text, I have them all controlled here using CSS variables. And so when you use, so when you use CSS variables to set these colors, then you can use that in your styles and then apply that everywhere. And so whatever colors are picked here, let's say I change my primary color to green and change my, link color to blue. One, it shows up right away, which is super nice and just looks so attractive. But the other thing is it just like moves that out. So that's some global settings that then people can pick from within the block editor. There's a new thing called the theme JSON file where instead of, there's a lot of settings that you have to register inside, you know, yes, I want to support this. Yes, I want to support this. Yes, I don't want to support this. No, I want to do this. You know, am I supporting wide styles? Am I supporting typography? Am I supporting round buttons? They're looking at putting all those settings into like a global JSON file of just all the settings. That's currently experimental, but something to keep in mind. So that's even more abstracting the global styles into their own thing and then letting blocks be blocks. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. It's still very much in flux, which is amazing to me, how much this has changed in a couple of years and how much it's probably going to change in a couple more years. So don't feel bad if half the stuff I'm saying is like over your head, because frankly, it was over my head like 9 months ago too. So I'm trying very hard to stay on top of it, and I'm still not staying on top of it. So don't feel bad if you're not either. All right, let's see. Let me see here.
Can I like ask a question since we're right on this? You just changed the link color.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you had a row of dark background with text on it. Like, is there any sort of inverted link color option that you have, or like how do you handle that?
So one thing that's cool is on a block by block basis. So if you're, let's say I have these columns, right? And I take my entire set of columns and I give it a background color of black, right? So that's a problem. And I'll put a link in here too, so that exists, right? And actually, I won't give it a background of black. I'll give it a background of pink because, there we go, or like this red color. Cool. All right. No, not that one. Gutenberg, you're the best. Cool. Colors. That. All right, cool. So we have this, maybe this, something that's kind of weird to read, right? So right now, I could set my text color as white. And that for me changes my link color because I, as a theme author, have been aggressive about that. But new coming up, this is in the plugin, but not in core yet. I could change my link color, and hypothetically, that would change the link color. Now, I overly aggressively styled my theme because link color didn't exist yet. But what I do need to do, since I know this exists, is this would technically set my link color as whatever color I wanted inline. So that's nice. For my global settings, so I do have my customizer. Here, I'll go back to that. So my global settings, I have a dark mode and a light mode. It only applies to the header and footer. But let's go look at it because it's in dark mode right now. Do it live. I'm sure it works. Where did I put that? Is it in layout? It probably is. All right. So if I switch this to light mode, yeah, so it changes back to my link color. So that's all stuff that I wrote.
Browser setting though, or like OS setting, not like a specific, like if this block is dark.
You can do that. I mean, like I did that in the other thing where I said like if text is set to white, then links should also
change
be white.
The link to white.
Yeah.
That's what. Okay, you had that.
Yeah. So I kind of like what I think what I did is I said like I did like sass and I did like a loop. So it's like if is this color, then also this is this color. But since link styling is coming into Gutenberg soon, as you could see, I can probably rethink that since you can now set links as their own color, which is kind of nice.
I feel like the block itself, I always add a CSS class to say like has dark background or something.
Yep.
And that's how I do it globally. But like, you know, not everyone wants to deal with adding a CSS class to things.
Before, this is just super fun nerd talk, but before I was using CSS variables to set all my colors, I actually had a Sass function that detected the darkness of the background just arbitrarily. And like, if it met a certain threshold, it would switch the text to white automatically versus black. Like, I can't do that with CSS variables because it can't run the calculation on a thing that doesn't exist. But that was cool. I was doing that for a little while. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do this other thing instead. So had to lose it. But
I run into that all the time. And I'm like, is this what I should be doing? Or is there, I wish the block itself had a like toggle of like, I want this to be whatever global inverted pattern there is. And then you only have to set it once. I would normally just save it as a reusable block.
Yep.
With the dark, or with the CSS actually, with the class. But yeah.
Although reusable
Okay.
blocks are kind of tough because, so for those of you that don't know about reusable blocks, I can show you how that works now. Let's say I love this cover image so much that I want to use the exact same thing in lots of places. And I don't mean the same layout. I mean this exact cover block in multiple places. Maybe that's not a great example, but maybe this super good call to action is a good example, right? Because let's say I've built this call to action block here. You know, it's basically just a group with a heading, do the thing, right? And then, so compelling, and then click, you know, add the text here, click here, right? So I've made this really great, really great. This is actually a custom block that I made in advanced custom fields. But anyway, so let's say this is my call to action, and I want to put this on the bottom of every single one of my blog posts so that you subscribe to my channel or whatever. You can do a thing called add to reusable blocks. So again, these little three dots are your friend. If you can't find something, probably find 3 dots and see if it's there. There's a thing called add to reusable blocks. What does that do? This is going to create this is actually a custom post type that's hidden. And I'm going to call it my great call to, oh, I already have my great call to action. Well, I can make my really great call to action. I am so good at naming. Okay, so I saved that. What did I just do? Well, in here, you can see this thing called reusable. And these are reusable blocks. Hey, here's my great call to action, and here's my really great call to action. If I add this block on any other page, it will have the exact same content and do the exact same thing. If I edit it, it will change it everywhere. So not the same thing as like a pattern, or, you know, it's basically like if I love this content and I want this content to be reused in multiple places, that's what reusable blocks are good for. You can also like make a reusable block and then ungroup it. And then, so that's kind of like a cheating way of saving preferences, right? But if you don't want to do that and you are, so the nice thing about reusable blocks is that you don't need any coding skills to make them. You can just make them right here. I saved it, it exists. If I add my great call to action on top of, you know, underneath my really great call to action, you can see that it's, there it is, right? I did that. I didn't have to do any code. But if you're a theme developer and you're like, I think that there are some certain, you know, combinations of blocks that people are going to really like, then you have block patterns, and block patterns are cool. Oh, this is new. Ooh, it's all categorized. I didn't learn that. I have the Gutenberg plugin installed on here, so this is fun. Fun. All right, cool. So I have created some block patterns. This is something you do have to write in code. And if I put this in here, it is a media and text area that's pre-populated with a heading, a subheading, a paragraph, and a link. That's just a common lockup that I think is a pattern that people are probably going to want to use. I also have some other complicated patterns like column patterns. So here's one, 3 columns with images, subheadings, paragraphs, and text, right? These are all core WordPress blocks. This is not a custom block. This is a pattern of blocks. It is the WordPress, so I can edit them the same way that I can edit blocks, but this is just a group of blocks. So this is the more correct, like code doing way of doing this, and that's called block patterns. You might see block patterns be included in some of your themes. WordPress core comes with block patterns now, so you can see some of the ones that they have. And so I use these a lot because, like, yes, I could build this, right? It's image, heading, you know, but like, do I want to try to build it a billion times if this is something that I'm going to use over and over again? No, here it is. So that's another fun thing, another terminology. So we have reusable blocks where the content stays the same. Although, like we discussed, I could go to my little 3 dots. I think I can Oh, convert to regular blocks. That's new too. It used to be under the 3 dots. This is so fun. I'm just learning all the things that they're changing every 5 seconds. Yay. And now it's a normal collection of blocks and it behaves the same. So that's also a thing.
Hey,
Ooh,
Michelle,
yeah.
real quick. So block patterns, you create those in the code, in the theme. They're not something you can configure in the GUI. Okay.
Right. So if you're not a coding person, the reusable blocks and then ungroup thing is a pretty good option for being able to do a similar thing. But just know patterns are registered in the code. Reusable blocks are a custom post type that you make. Technically, if you use a reusable block and edit it without ungrouping it, it will edit the content everywhere. So be aware of that. Yeah, and there's yeah. Go ahead.
So the block pattern which you had created, I can see that the image is on the top and it is followed by paragraph and heading.
Yep.
Right. So if you have to change the order and if you have to get the heading on the top, then it would have to be done manually for each column. Or is there a way that we can do it for all columns at once?
There is not, just because again, these are just core blocks and it all I'm doing, unless you want to do it forever, and then I, as the person who wrote the pattern, would just change the code, right? But the site editor would not be able to globally change that everywhere, unless they made a reusable block, and then like
same block, right?
Yep. So, yeah. So there was another thing. Oh, so there was a question: can you drag a block from a column into a space not in that column? Yes. It's hard. It's a little bit. So they are experimenting a lot with dragging. They have had a lot of not great UI experiences with dragging. So I've been using these arrows a whole bunch, right? Like moving stuff around with the arrows, which is a thing that you can do, but that doesn't really take you out of the group, right? Currently, if you don't have the Gutenberg plugin installed, if you click right in between the 2 arrows, it turns into like it's very hard to get to. But right now in the Gutenberg plugin, there's a drag. So I'm hovering over these dots. Dots are your friend. Look for the dots. If you can't do something, find some dots. Maybe it will work. I can grab it and I can move it, there instead, right? It's a little glitchy. I'm gonna undo that. Or, actually, if I wanted to take this, there we go. I am just really good at capitalizing multiple letters. If I want to take this and put it inside a column instead, right? It's better now. So this is in the Gutenberg plugin. It doesn't quite work like this in core right now. They are still working on the dragging thing. This is attached to your toolbar. Again, if your toolbar is up in the top toolbar, you can't drag things, right? So if you want to drag stuff, you need to have your toolbar down and attached to your block, and then you get these dots soon, and you can move around. It's not perfect. It's still, see, look, I'm struggling right now. Okay, drag block. Nope. See, Gutenberg, the best. But it kind of works, which is fun.
So what's move to for in the vertical? Yeah, like I've never gotten that to work. I highlight in click areas, but then it just assumes I want another block.
Yeah, that's weird.
You don't have to have an answer if you say,
I haven't never done it before. I'm trying it. This is fun. It probably is supposed to do something.
Yeah, I would think it would move it to wherever you click, but when you click, it just opens up options or something.
Ooh. So speaking of stuff that lives in these 3 dots, there's another fun one that says edited HTML. What is edit as HTML? Well, it just shows you the HTML. The heading's not very exciting if I'm just on heading. I'll go back to edit visually. But if I go back, another one too for navigating. So I showed you the tree of everything, right? And it actually shows you where you are right now, which is kind of nice. But if you just want to be here and you just want to go up to its parent, if you hover over the icon of the thing, that's what this is. That's the heading icon. I can select the column. And if I hover over that, I can select the entire block of columns. So just another tip for navigating around. So let's say I want to see these columns and I want to, no, not that one. Oh, this is so fun. Okay, you. Again, also I have the Gutenberg plugin installed, so some things might be behaving very strangely. Am I still in move to mode? Is that why it's being weird? I think it is. Yeah. Oh, what is happening? I think I'm still in move to mode, and that's why it's being weird. I don't know. I'm going to refresh the page. That's the best way to do everything. So again, the cool thing about Gutenberg is that it's still in process. And again, I have the plugin installed. So all the fun glitches are here, which is always fun to do live when I'm trying to tell you how great it is. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go back to these to let's say this whole thing here. Columns. Let's why can't I edit you as HTML? Ugh. Fine. Anyway, edit as HTML is in line. They changed this too. So it used to be that was the way that you could see the code for the blocks that you could copy into patterns if you were a theme developer. But since that's not working, I can't show you that. So that's cool. All right. So there is a question, given how much has changed with Gutenberg since it first released, how well have block-based sites held up as changes have occurred? How painful maintaining a site's been as the updates roll out? Great question, because I have been building Gutenberg-powered sites since they came out on purpose. Basically, if you stayed as close as possible to what shipped with core, you're fine. The more you try to bend it to your own will, like most things that are constantly in flux, the more you try to bend it to your own will by doing custom colors or custom, typography settings or custom blocks or whatever, the more difficult it was to keep it up. So there are some sites that I was building as they were releasing stuff, and they are on a maintenance contract with me, and part of that maintenance contract is I go in and I make sure that whatever stuff I wrote when they changed class names or changed stuff is up to date. So yes, early adoption is a pain in the butt. But again, what you can do if you are not interested in that is either stick with the options that core gives you, or outsource it to a theme developer that has already thought about it, such as one of the WordPress core themes or someone else who makes these themes. But yeah, it's a bit of a lot. Yeah, so I purposely picked Gutenberg, even though it's been a lot, because I believe in what it's trying to do. And I'm also like, every client I've had that I've given it to, whether they were an existing client on Classic Editor or a new client, once I explained to them how it worked, they were very, very excited. They liked the visual interface. But yeah, there's a lot. Let me make sure that I haven't missed some very important questions.
There was one from Pat about when you were talking about atomic design, he wanted to know how you were sharing that, what tool or service you were using to share your atomic design components with clients.
Sure. Well, all I'm doing for the most part is just using Illustrator and mocking up examples of blocks, basically. But I have also used Pattern Lab, which is pretty cool. I'll show y'all because it's cool. So Pattern Lab is way overkill for a WordPress project. But if you want to do atomic design for any project that doesn't matter what the back end is, this is a really cool way to deliver that. So I haven't been here in a while, so let me see if I can see how cool it is. Basically, no, I don't want to download it. Oh, I just want, hold on, I have to move the menu that controls the thing. Okay. This, can I just see it? Oh man, Pattern Lab got fancy. Well, anyway, Pattern Lab, if you want to build a very, very robust design system and have that design system exist as its own deliverable, Pattern Lab's a really cool way to do it. It is literally built out of atomic design principles. Brad Frost is one of the people that worked on it. Brad Frost is the person who coined the term atomic design. Look into it. This is not a Pattern Lab talk. I could probably talk forever just on this, but it's pretty cool. I wish that they still had the actual like demo, but oh well. I haven't been on this site in like over a year, but mostly I'm just using Illustrator to create just mock-ups of blocks. So, and we have a question about ACF as well. Ooh, so again, that's also its own presentation, and I just gave a presentation to a different meetup about ACF blocks with Gutenberg specifically, but I can give you a little teaser here. So if you have an Advanced Custom Fields Pro license, you have the ability to create custom blocks using Advanced Custom Fields. With the beauty is you don't have to use JavaScript. You don't have to write JavaScript. They take care of all that for you. You register fields the same way you normally would. You register blocks the same kind of way you would register like a custom post type. And you write your block templates in the normal PHP that you would if you're writing a theme. And everything is just the same way you'd already be writing stuff with Advanced Custom Fields and WordPress and themes. Most blocks are written in JavaScript. So that's problematic for people that maybe aren't great JavaScript developers. Raise his hand. I am, my vanilla JavaScript's okay. Obviously I can write all the jQuery, but I haven't learned React yet. And I still need to write blocks. So Advanced Custom Fields has been fun for that. I can give you just a teaser of what that looks like. Where's my custom blocks page? Where's my custom blocks? There it is. It's called my custom blocks, so it's easy to find. I have an Advanced Custom Fields block plugin up on GitHub. If you have Advanced Custom Fields Pro, you can use it. You cannot use it without Advanced Custom Fields Pro. It is required, but if you do, you can check it out. My plugin is free. These are all blocks that are built with Advanced Custom Fields. The way that works, for example, this is a block, and you can see now a whole lot of settings over here in the sidebar. So the difference between an Advanced Custom Fields powered block and maybe a normal core block is that a lot of things are going to happen in the sidebar, especially if you're using the fields, right? So you can see here, this is a block that pulls in a grid of posts. I can choose to display from, all posts. I could display, so these are all settings that I wrote. This is a custom block that I wrote. I could add posts manually. So these are all Advanced Custom Fields that you might be familiar with. I can choose how many items they're going to be, so I'll go back to, so this is all stuff that I wrote. I could have, 8 items with 4 items per row. And it all like live updates, which is kind of nice. Let's do all posts so that it all shows up. I could show a list of category links, which is so great when you have the unit test data and there's a million categories. I could show a view all link. I could give it a background color. So all of these things are Advanced Custom Fields that I've written templates for that turned into custom blocks. So lots of fun stuff there. What's really cool though is this is my slider block, right? And so I'm using a bunch of fields to pick the images. I can set the minimum height and maximum height of the slider. I can pick what type it is, all that. But Advanced Custom Fields blocks now support inner blocks. What does that mean? That means I made an inner block where I can add blocks inside it. So now I can add like a paragraph here, and I could put another paragraph here, and I could put like all kinds of stuff in here, right? So I think I'm only supporting a couple different kinds of blocks in here. I had to like explicitly define which ones I wanted to be allowed to be put in here. But this is super nice because now I don't have to use only Advanced Custom Fields, text boxes and all that stuff. So this is kind of brand new. It happened. A lot of this stuff has happened like during quarantine, basically. So super cutting edge stuff. But these are all Advanced Custom Fields powered blocks, which is kind of neat. And yes, I will try to get the link to the ACF presentation if it exists so that y'all can, it was a similar format to this. So it's basically me rambling a whole lot and showing people stuff. So you can see me do that, but only about ACF. It'll be fun. there any other? That's because I have 2 screens, Stacey. So I'm cheating. I just have all the screen real estate. It's fine. I'm a millennial. I can just multitask. Is there any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute and ask, you can.
I have one.
Okay.
The columns, the grid of blocks that you just showed, did you write the CSS with custom properties and grid, or how did you do the columns?
So this is using my super old school, cool column framework based on inline block. That's right, classic. Yeah, so this is, and this plugin is up on GitHub, so feel free to, I'll just share my GitHub link right now. So y'all can steal things. So this is Pink Spring is my theme. So if you want to take a look at that, it's written with Sass and it has a lot of opinions in it. This is my customizer plugin. It's designed to work with my theme. So that is where you can set a bunch of fun stuff with colors, typography, layout. I have a lot of global settings, like you can change everything to round, you can change all the archives to grids or lists. Like I made a whole bunch of fun stuff there. This is my block plugin. So all my custom blocks are in there if you want to see how building custom blocks works, and then how you abstract them into ridiculous reusable componentizable things. That's all there. And this one, if you want to see some super fun complex stuff, Acf Event Blocks is a plugin that I made for a client, along with a bunch of other things, to do event website management with blocks, which is super cool. And actually a live example of that at work is this website, aigamnddesigncamp.org, which I threw together in like a couple weeks. That is all powered, it's all block powered and my theme powered. And I hardly did any custom styling to it. I just registered the colors and the fonts and then just like started throwing blocks at it. So if you want to see, the schedule is all block powered. It's fully responsive, shockingly similar probably to the WordCamp schedule blocks. There's sponsors, there's speakers. This block up here, actually, when an event is coming up, it has a countdown clock that counts down, and then while the event is happening, it shows you whatever the next upcoming track is in whatever space you want. So all of that was blocks, and all of that was either core blocks or ACF blocks. So blocks can do lots of stuff. And all of these pages were just like built and put together with blocks like really quickly once they existed. So lots of things. But AIG, I'll just share this if you want to see it. It was a fun event too. It was a purely virtual event. There's a whole lot of stuff with it also integrated, I integrated it with memberships so that all the content is protected unless you're logged in. I integrated it with Event Tickets Pro, which is Modern Tribe's ticketing program. So basically it also integrates with BuddyPress. So if you're signed in, you have an account. The account lets you have a profile. You can save your sessions that show up in your profile. You can interact with other attendees and see their profiles. You can save all the sessions that you want to see. If you're logged in, you get different levels of access depending on what ticket you bought. It was WooCommerce memberships, yes. And I used the membership blocks to just like to be able to determine which parts of the page were accessible versus not. Memberships has a block where everything in this block is shown to logged in people, and everything in this block is shown to logged out people, or everything in this block is shown to people only with this membership level, and this one is shown to people that don't have that membership level. So for example, this camp had a keynote only ticket and a full access ticket. So we had to be able to restrict access to the keynotes for everyone. But everything else could only be the people that bought that ticket. So there was like a lot of things, and it was all blocks, which is so cool. Blocks and lots of theme things, but like theme things that were for blocks. So it was there's so many things you can do. It's really neat. Yeah, lots of fun.
Michelle,
yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you been able to pass data from a parent block to the child block when you have used inner block with ACF? Or maybe access the data of child block from the parent block?
I haven't. So I know that I've read about it, right? I haven't had to do that. I know that there are some issues right now, and I think this might be partly because of the fact that I'm using ACF blocks and it's doing some kind of
No,
like
I'm
magic with
talking of the ACF only. So it's quite
Yeah.
possible when we do it from the React side, but if we do it from the ACF blocks and we use inner blocks, I have been trying to get the parent and child taught, so that if I have a parent called as button group, I can set the settings of the button in the button group itself instead of setting individually for each button.
Sure.
At the child level.
I think there's some issues there because of the fact that they're doing all the like dynamic rendering kind of in a weird way. So like the page, like I've also had issues with being able to display like other pieces of post content in the back end. Like it'll render in the front end properly, but it won't render in the back end properly. So I think that's just like a limitation, but don't quote me on that because like I am certainly much more of a front end person than I am a back end person. Most of the logic I'm writing is in service of getting data to output somewhere, but not necessarily to make it talk to each other in new and interesting ways. So I have read about what you're trying to do, but I haven't tried to do it. So yeah.
No problem. Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Yep. Any other random questions? Feel free to put them in the chat if you don't want to speak up, or feel free to speak up. That's cool too. I can just talk about a million things for hours. I'll get tired eventually, but
I have a sort of general question. Like, so you've been using blocks since they were implemented, and you've done a bunch of projects. Are there any mistakes you've made with blocks where you did an approach on a project and then later was like, I should never do that again? Like there was a trap you fell into?
So the biggest mistake that I made with blocks wasn't necessarily with the blocks themselves, but it was in how I was writing my theme. So like I said, I'm a big proponent of making sure that the editor experience matches the front end experience as much as possible. But I had to learn, like, it's not as easy as just enqueuing the same exact style sheet. And like, they say it's that easy. They're like, oh, just add editor style support, it'll be fine. But then like, it overly aggressively overwrites a bunch of things. And so I had, for a while, there's a lot of like hidden text in the here. So yeah, there's a lot of like in here inside this interface, there's a lot of hidden text in there for like ARIA reasons and like screen reader reasons, right? Like it has to semantically spell out what those things are so that like, you know, you can see it in the tooltips, right? But like there's a lot of hidden text in there. Well, it turns out I had a style that made super sense on the front end that like made spans display inline block. But it made every span on the back end display inline block. And so all of that text was like showing and like moving, and it was awful. And I'm like, what? I broke the editor. Like I am the worst. So I had to like, I do have a separate editor style sheet because I use Sass. I can import, you know, the ones that I think will make sense. I have a separate button partial for the editor than I do for the front end because the button partial would overwrite every freaking button back here with my button styles and it looks awful. And I'm like, no, even now, like it's a little bit over aggressive because you can see these headings here. You can't maybe necessarily see now, but they're actually in my theme's heading style, which is kind of nice, but maybe it might not be so nice. So there's still some things that are like being aggressive and overwriting things. So the biggest mistakes I've made was like figuring out how to deal with styles in the editor because it is a little bit of an adventure. I've also learned, not necessarily in a mistake kind of way, but like one thing I did learn was for these ACF fields, especially, let's go back into here. So there's a lot of, like if I go to add post manually, like this is the post relationship field in ACF, which as you know, usually is side by side. It's not really responsive and it's not really meant to sit in the sidebar. I had to write custom styles to make a whole bunch of these fields fit in the sidebar properly. So figuring out like where I had to enqueue things in the editor styles versus in the admin styles to be able to target all of that was super fun. Like this here is a custom styling of this color picker, which is different than styling it somewhere else. And so like enqueuing styles is mostly what I learned. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question if nobody
Okay.
else does. So we have blocks, and they're kind of we're moving towards full site blocks for headers and footers and everything. Do you still use sidebars at all? I'm kind of struggling with when I go to strategize content, what should be in a sidebar, what should be a block that I can reuse on different pages, and where to draw the line between the two.
Yeah. So right now I do still use sidebars. I can see how it would go away. And I've done it a couple different ways. So for example, this design camp page, see if I can find a good, actually one of the speakers is a great example. So if I go to a speaker on the design camp page, you can see what looks like a sidebar and some content, right? And if you go to, any given speaker, and they all have similar stuff, right? Well, these are actually not sidebars. These are column blocks for that page that I have made templates for that pre-populate with blocks that output this data, which is metadata from this post, right? I could have just written that into the template and be like, whatever, this is the part I'm editing. But I wanted people to be able to add stuff or get rid of stuff here if they wanted to, right? Like, no, our speakers are never going to have, sessions associated with them. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't, but get rid of that block, right? So I wanted it to be like very in line, like on a page by page basis. I think probably, however it ends up, we are probably still going to have global elements and page level elements. And a sidebar, since we don't have global blocks yet, a sidebar is still a global element. And so a sidebar is like, do I want this exact thing in multiple places? Like this collection of things in multiple places. So like how a reusable block is like, I want to use the same content on multiple pages, headers and footers and sidebars and all these global elements are like, I want to reuse this on multiple pages. I don't want to have to set this up on a page by page by page by page level. Then again, though, I've used sidebars in old projects where I needed to use another plugin that let me change the sidebar on a page by page level because it was better that way. So that would have been way better to just use blocks, right? The other thing too is like, there's like blocks that let you add widgets as blocks too. So like it's all, a widget was kind of like the first block, right? It was its own little thing that you could reuse in multiple places. I think there's going to be a lot less distinction between the two. We're just going to be thinking about what's a page level element, what's a global level element. Is there anything that has to happen everywhere? Is there anything that has to happen in a specific group of things? Is there anything that has to happen on an archive versus not an archive, right? So we're still going to be thinking the same way. We just probably won't be writing code the same way.
Have you ever tried to export and import a reusable block JSON file?
I have not. I don't really I just started writing patterns instead. So I have, the only thing I've done is like copy block code to use it into patterns. So I went the opposite direction as you. But I have found and edited the weird, here's where the custom post type for all the blocks live, let's go edit them screen, which is funny. No, I haven't done that. It's hard
to find.
Yeah, I know, it's like a secret. You have to just no, I haven't done that, mostly just because I've decided to go the route of just programmatically writing them as patterns.
Yeah, I didn't know about that till tonight. So
oh my gosh,
I will be doing that.
The code for that is so funny. Hold on, I'm just gonna show you because I think it's funny. I don't know if anybody else thinks it's funny, but as a person who writes some semblance of code, I think it's hilarious. So I'm going to see if I can find it in my theme file, which I have open here. Block templates. Oh, see, block templates are nice. You write them as arrays of stuff like you'd expect, right? And a block template is something that shows up on the post level. So like when you went to my theme and it had, you know, you went to a new page, and when you went to that new page, it automatically had that cover image there. That is a block template that applies to all pages, and that's super nice. But oh my gosh, where did I write my block patterns? Because they're so funny and I have to show you.
While you look for that, does the block template apply, you said to all pages, can you tell it which pages to apply to? Like every page that is
No, it's on a post type basis. I know. I at least want it to be on like a page template basis, but no,
that's what I was gonna,
it's just on a post type basis or globally right now.
Okay.
There's some usefulness level to that, which is why patterns are a nice like fill in. But okay, I know. Oh, maybe it's here. Oh, okay. It's in my block templates file, but it's underneath the block templates. Okay, I'll just show you. Let's share some code. I know how to share things. All right. All right, so I'm gonna zoom it on in here. All right, so we have block templates, which makes sense. This is my page block template. Those are arrays, very similar to registering a block, right? Post block template, you know, I got my core paragraph block, right? So normal, right? Then we have block patterns. So okay, so here's what a block pattern is. You have your name of it, and then you have the title, you have the categories, and you have a string of the HTML. Like that's what it is. You copy and paste the HTML with the comments and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like we couldn't have done it with the arrays. Now we have to do just a string of So anyway, I think that's hilarious. I don't know. No one else finds it funny.
So do you go and make that first in the editor and then copy it and then paste it in here? Yeah, because then you get all the WP paragraph stuff.
You just have to, like, the thing is you just have to know like all the placeholder, like all the different little settings, right? So this was kind of fun to try to discover, right? So yeah, you just give it a title. You give it a category, which is where it shows up like in the little drop menu there. Turn into a drop menu, that's new. It used to just be a long list. And then it, you know, generates your stuff. But yeah, you basically just copy the block code and paste it.
And then that's processed and it's editable on the front end?
Yeah, so literally this thing, register block pattern, like all you do is you just have this register block pattern and it just needs like,
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because these are just patterns, like these are just patterns of blocks that already exist from somewhere else. So I'm not creating anything new. I'm just telling it how to put it together.
Grouping.
But it just makes me laugh because it's
that's ridiculous.
Is there any like issue with like translations in the content area? Since I mean, you could clear it out and just write whatever, but like I'm just curious. Like
I don't. No, I haven't. So I have them there, like obviously it's not translatable, although you can put like PHP in here and it'll like replace it, because I did that for the custom blocks that I wrote for the I have a couple of custom blocks that I use for like outputting different things, and I wrote a fallback if they don't exist to core blocks, and then I could put that variable in here. So like there are ways to like stick PHP stuff in here. Yeah, there's ways of sticking PHP stuff in here if you're worried about that. I haven't actually included any actual text in this. I just have the placeholders. I think if you're worried about it, you could probably write like a little translatable thing and just like have it so that like inside your string when it outputs it, it's but this is extremely not well documented. So like try it and tell me, because I think some of the stuff that I figured out wasn't even stuff that was documented anywhere. So
I'm excited to try that one.
oh yeah, that's true. The link to the allowed block types is useful, although that one is tough because when I looked at it, I think you have to, it's like an explicitly allow, which doesn't allow, like, right, it's like an explicit, like these are the ones that are allowed, which is a problem if people ever want to add another block to that thing. So it's only good if you want to like limit it, but not great if you want to control it. But on a your settings basis, hold on, global settings basis, let me go back to my, I do like the block manager, which is kind of nice just for your own personal setting. Like, do I need these 5 trillion embed blocks or whatever? No, like I can just turn them off and then they won't be there. This is a your own settings thing, and that's in the 3 dots. 3 dots, block manager. Oh, and this is the manage all reusable blocks secret menu that takes you to the secret custom post type. Yeah, there's the export and yeah, import. There it is. There it is. Super fun. Anyway, anything else? Cool. Awkward silence, my favorite.
I think we're all caught up on questions.
Awesome.
I had no idea that Block Manager was there. So thanks for demonstrating that.
Have I tried the new WooCommerce checkout block? No, I was just I went to a Woo Sesh, or at least half of Woo Sesh, and I saw the new stuff. So I'm really excited about it. I am in the middle of building an e-commerce site right now. It looks really nice. Like they have a lot of so I'm like currently building, I can show you that. I'm currently building a theme that is taking advantage of all the existing WooCommerce blocks. I am now nowhere near, where are you? You're probably this one. I'm nowhere near like being done with it in any way, but yo, refresh. Whatever. But anyway, there's a lot of super cool like blocks in WooCommerce, and a new one that they're doing is the checkout block, which basically instead of using the checkout shortcode, it has a block, and then there's like a lot of like inline settings you can edit. It does not support all of their payment gateways and stuff yet. So the downside is, again, you have to stick pretty close to what ships with WooCommerce by default. But if that's fine with you, like if you already use those things, great. I know they're also working on like getting some of their other big products like memberships and stuff to integrate. The other downside too, speaking of WooCommerce, that I'm learning because I'm literally doing this project, like that's what I was doing today. And something that they've written about and spoken about. The structure of the blocks is a completely different DOM structure than the structure of their templates. They also don't have filters. Or like they're still thinking about it, they're figuring it out, right? But if you're used to, like, for example, here, I'll just share this. So for example, so this is not even close to done being styled yet, but it is oh, don't click on it. Oh, it's so bad. You know, you can click select options, or you can like add it to your wish list, right? And that's like a filter that the wish list plugin is using to hook into where the cart button is and like puts their wish list button there, right? So that's filters. But if I use the block, it doesn't have those filters, like it just doesn't. And the DOM structure is totally different. So whatever styles you wrote for your WooCommerce theme pages don't apply to the block. They did it on purpose because they wanted to be able to have more control over how the blocks render in both places. But just FYI, if you're writing themes that are for e-commerce, I'd highly recommend abstracting your styles in some way and then applying them to both both sets of things. So I'm still working on matching. This is the block, right? And this is a block too. It's pretty sweet. You know, they have their filter as a live filter. A lot of my stuff still needs to be, my styling's overwriting all the things, but yeah, so you can see that it's getting close, but it's not exactly the same as the actual, this is like a theme template, you know, thing, which has the filters. So that's another thing that's kind of a bummer about the block thing, is that because it's all, you know, being dynamic, they have to come up with some different ways of doing filtering, or just not have them. So your hooks aren't there the way you'd expect. Okay, so there was another question. I'm going to pull my chat window back up. There we go. As a newbie to Gutenberg, a couple questions about how to get up to speed. It depends on what you want to do. I'm not super great at recommending courses or sites, because usually the way I learn is by like reading random blog posts about the specific thing that I want to do, and then hacking my way around the rest until I have to find the next blog post about the specific thing I want to do. So that's like my learning style. So I'm not super great at recommending courses. There are great courses that do exist if you want to learn how to build for Gutenberg. So like JavaScript for WordPress, React development type stuff. And there are a lot of people that have given like some 101s on like using Gutenberg to put pages together. So I won't be the best person to give the answer to that, because it's not how my learning style works, but I'm sure that some other people in the meetup will share some links. Okay, we can stop sharing my ugly website. Cool. Cool.
Any other questions, comments, chit chat?
It's like socializing, gross.
We're all getting unused to it.
So I part-time contract doing UX at Target. Target's located here in Minneapolis, so it's kind of like the thing where it's like the Devil Wears Prada type thing. Like everybody ends up working here, right? You do your time here, you could do it anywhere. But anyway, our team, we had to implement like a mandatory hangout after stand up for 5 minutes and have a random conversation, because like we have a Slack room, but like we end up just being heads down and doing our work. And then we're like, we never talk to each other anymore. Like, okay, mandatory social time, 5 minutes. Like, how was your weekend? What did you do? Have you eaten any good food? I also like food. Like, so some of that has to just happen.
Yeah, that's what we're missing from our lives right now, for sure.
Yeah, like I don't like forced small talk, but I love like organic, discoverable small talk. Like if you find yourself in a situation with people, just like being able to learn a random thing about someone, like that's not a thing anymore. No, everything is very deliberate and heavy.
Oh, it's super important for learning and working too, because it's those little ideas that you just toss off to people are the ones that, you know, you end up incorporating into your own work without having to, you know, organize them into lists and present them and everything.
Yep, exactly.
Does anyone in the group have a recommended site program or something they've used to get up to speed with Gutenberg? Or is everyone just like, you know, Michelle and me and everyone just figuring out as they go along?
I mostly figured out as I go along, but Zach Gordon has some good courses.
Yeah,
very good.
And he's a good human too.
He is a human. Especially, I mean, he has a lot of levels of courses, but especially if you want to learn like the development process for sure.
Yeah. What about actually just building sites with Gutenberg, like getting used to the interface, things like that? Does anyone have done any tutorials or anything on that? Just from a user's, implementer's point of view.
This one might be good. I think I've recommended it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hey, Zach Gordon and Joe Casabona. So those two people are behind that website, and they're probably the best instructors I know for anything. So that one
awesome.
has some good stuff in it. I trust anything they'll put out.
I first learned WordPress from Zach, so I think he hung the moon.
I attempted to learn React from him, but it was right when quarantine started, and my concentration went downhill fast.
I kind of feel bad that I didn't, super improve myself during this period of quarantine, but I was also super busy. So,
Well, we all cope in different ways. Like I cope by learning. So I just my mental health may not be great, but I know how to do Gutenberg. But that's good because then I can talk to all of you and then you can help my mental health by making me laugh.
You got to just grab a hold of whatever you can.
Michelle, you said you put a lot of your styles in the customizer nowadays. I feel like I don't know if I dreamt this or if this is real, but is there version control in the customizer now?
No. So like whatever settings are saved there kind of is a database problem. So I write all my default styles still into the theme, like the way it's expected to be, and mostly I just have them there in case we want to tweak them or play with them later, but there's always default settings in the theme. Like,
sure.
Yeah, no, I don't think, I mean, the one thing I did, like the only cool thing I remember like coming out of the customizer that I was actually like super impressed with was when they could like actually compile Sass live, which was kind of sweet. But I don't think there's been much. The customizer is kind of like the forgotten child. It'll probably end up going away in favor of like theme JSON settings, and as we move into like full site editing and Oh, wow.
I like it because it's easy, but it's also super annoying because then I want to take all the styles I wrote and put it in my Sass files. And then sometimes I'll do that and then not remember which ones I already included. And it's just like, oh, I wish there just wasn't this easy way to do this.
Yep.
But also the customizer overwrites a lot of like premium themes, like really specific styles. Or like plugins, and sometimes it's hard to do that or harder to do that with the child. I don't know. Also, I feel like the customizer also displays styles better on the editor than, there's a lot of reasons to use it, but also I just feel like styles are getting sort of like forgotten in the WordPress editing experience nowadays, and I feel like a lot of it's going to inline everything because the block editor,
it's very
there's so many options, and it makes me feel itchy and gross that there's no global way to change some of these things.
I think that's kind of an offshoot too of the rise of the page builders, like you touched on before, because you can get super granular with the page builder, which is what I like about them. But then you can also go far down a rabbit hole and get yourself in big trouble.
I will share the link to what the official resource of what they're talking about for the theme JSON global settings stuff, which I think kind of returns some of that global control to where it belongs, which is nice. I have a lot of opinions about the downsides of blocks, even though I love blocks, but the downsides of moving into a component-y, React-y, like my team at Target uses not WordPress, but they write React stuff all the time. And like, it's really funny to talk about styles with them because, we have like global Sass files that we have, but then so many things are like inside the component and very like the few times that I tried to work on it, I'm just like, this is like, but the cascade is so beautiful. Embrace the cascade. Stop it.
It's hard to find things when they're scoped. You're like, where is this? I know there was this color.
And every class name is and I'm like, thanks, JavaScript. Yeah. But that's just me having opinions. That's not,
Well, it's 8 o'clock, so anyone who has other things to do with their evening, feel no shame in leaving. We usually keep this open to hang out and chat because many of us get no social interaction and we miss each other and meeting in real life. But I think at 8 o'clock is what sort of the it's okay to leave. Nobody will think you're being rude cutoff.
Cool. Well, I probably have to go pretty soon because I have to help clean up all the dishes we made fajitas and homemade guac and homemade pico, and there are a lot of dishes from that. So
Nice. That sounds
That
great.
sounds yummy.
yeah.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, Michelle. It was super useful and yeah, much more fast than trying to figure all that stuff out by myself. So I appreciate that. I would never have noticed half those things.
I know. Learn from my random mistakes and exploration.
Thanks for sharing your GitHub too.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, we'll put this video, we'll share a link to the video when it's done processing, and I'll get all the links from the chat and put them in the comments on the Meetup page. So you'll have those links as reference, everyone. And yeah, and then we'll get all the stuff together and put it online where everyone can refer to it in the future. Okay. Bye, everyone.
All right, I'm gonna drop off. Thanks for having me.
Bye, Michelle.
Oh,
Enjoy your
thanks.
snow or not.
Oh, yeah, I will.
No, great.
Yeah. No, in Minneapolis, we probably have at least 5 inches by now. So
Oh,
Crazy.
wow.
Crazy.
yeah, happy October.
It's global warming up there, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. All right.
Sophie,
Bye.
it's June.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I
you doing,
repainted my
Nancy?
office, and as I was putting things back, and my husband said, you could put like chairs here for visitors. And I said, I do this so I don't have visitors.
Nice.
I live in a hole under a
recording.
rock.
I am stopping the recording.
Okay, bye.